Today, we are talking Scour, Phil Anselmo's black metal project, and their first studio album. Welcome to the Crypt of Wax, the weekly review show of the latest metal music. Joining me, my co-host, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm doing good, yeah.
Nice.
I took, obviously we're going straight into Scour here. Had you heard of these guys before?
I'd sort of heard that Phil was doing a black metal band, but I'd never actually listened to them because I thought I don't know if that's going to be any good. So,
I was going to ask you because you're a black metal fan, John, and you had no interest in checking this out previously.
No, not really. And I'm assuming you hadn't got into this previously.
No, I hadn't. But to be honest, when I look at some of the other members now, I maybe would have checked this out if I'd have known.
Yeah, so all right, so let's jump into a little bit about the band then. They're kind of like a supergroup, aren't they? You got Phil Anselmo on vocals, obviously Pantera and Down. You've got Derek Engman, ex-Cattle Decapitation, and Mark Kloppel, Misery Index, on guitars. Bassist John Jarvis, ex-Pig Destroyer, or current Pig Destroyer? No, ex-Pig Destroyer. And drummer Adam Jarvis, Pig Destroyer and Misery Index. So they've all kind of shared previous kind of grindy, extreme-y bands to come together for this, and apparently formed in 2015. So it's kind of late for a first album.
Yeah, it's 10 years, but they've done a bunch of EPs, right? And they all seem to be largely color related. They did a grey, red, black.
Yeah,
now the album's called Gold.
So that's what I was going to jump into, I guess. We'll go with this album. The album's Gold, came out very recently, and it's all their artwork is their logo in the color of the name of the EP. How do you feel about that?
It feels quite low effort to me.
Very low effort. I don't really like it. I was thinking it would be cool if it was maybe like a sleeve on a vinyl and it was like a cutout. Do you know what I mean?
I see, yeah. And then you had the art behind it. You had art, you had an artwork behind it, and then that went over the top.
Yeah, and the artwork was something disgustingly gold. But I think that would kind of work. But the fact that it's just a black background with the logo, I don't know, man. It does feel a little bit cheap. And it's kind of the first insight into the band, isn't it? Like the first thing you look at is that artwork. And not to say it's bad, just a little bit lazy.
Do you feel as well that it makes the band feel like a side project because of the effort that's gone into the art?
Nah, I don't think so. Because I feel like they could have, when you actually get into this record, it doesn't feel like a side project.
That's true. That's true.
I feel like with the backing of the label and the kind of level of all these people that they're at, they could quite easily get good artwork. I think it's just a case of they just want to go down this route of having everything labeled as one thing.
Yeah, they got this conceptual type thing, but it's a bit lame, isn't it? And especially with people who've kind of been in their respective scenes for so long, you'd think they'd maybe learn a few lessons on what to do. It did to me. It did feel a little bit like new bands who are just doing their first thing by people who haven't really been around that long, like young.
Yeah, it does feel almost a little bit local band in a way, doesn't it? Which is a
little bit. It does, yeah.
A bit harsh to say, but all right. Let's move on from the artwork and sort of jump straight into the overall sound of this. So, Scour are predominantly a black metal band, but it's that kind of modern black metal, isn't it? That kind of more extreme metal with black metal tinge. It
feels blackened, doesn't it? It feels like. To me, it feels like a mix of kind of black metal, death metal, and grinds, sort of all put together, which makes sense when you look at the members. Yeah. Or Phil Anselmo's kind of white wine metal.
Yeah, white wine metal.
You should call it as a new thing, or Sauvignon Blanc metal. We've got a good sort of label for it.
Yeah. So, all right, let's take Phil's previous antics out of the equation,
which works well for black metal.
Well, yeah, it does. How do you think he did as a sort of black metal vocalist?
Well, I'll ask you this first of all. If you didn't know, would you know it was him? Don't lie, John.
Probably not. Probably
No.
not. No,
No.
probably not.
I mean, to me, it sounds nothing like him, really. I think there was one bit in the second song, Blades, where he does like a low-spoken word for like a line that could be a bit Phil Anselmo, but it could also. I wouldn't automatically go to him. There was, you associate Phil Anselmo doing vocals with sort of lots of like goddams and things like that, but there was none of that here, and I thought he did really well vocally. I thought his vocals were pretty great, to be honest.
Yeah, man. I thought the highs were good, like that kind of more black metal high thing, but he wasn't scared to go low, like that deep growl, which you don't really get in black metal. And so it was quite a nice mix of the two styles.
Well, it was kind of that was he was kind of doing that more for the kind of death metal grind influence in this album, and I do think him mixing up his vocals like that kept it interesting vocally.
Yeah, agreed. Because it's not like there's not much like differentiation between like each song, is there? They're all kind of like 2 minutes long, and they're all like pretty blisteringly fast, man. Especially the drumming. That's that. We'll touch on that later. So I guess adding those kind of different vocal blends did sort of allow to give some sort of difference between each moment. Do you want to sort of go in track by track here, or
can we not? Because I haven't got notes for every track. I'm totally honest, but obviously there was a few there's a couple of interlude type songs on there, wasn't there? There were, sort of break it up. But as you said, most of them had a similar feel. It was that mixture of black metal with some grind in there, some death metal. I thought done very, very well in that sense.
Was it better than you were expecting?
Much better than I expected.
Really?
I thought I had quite low expectations for it because I didn't know who else was in the band. But then when I listened to it and I read who it was and saw it was like the guy from Agoraphobic Nosebleed and the guy from Pig Destroyer, I then was like, hang on, this could be pretty cool. And I mean, obviously the drumming in it is unbelievable, isn't it?
It's insane. It's so fast. I can't get over how fast it is. And what's quite nice is contrasting to the guitar work. The guitar work is, on the whole, very simple on this record. Like, very simple. There's not really there's nothing over the top, which I actually really enjoy. It's really straight, really like just balls to the walls, just kind of like simplistic kind of riffing. I think like the techiest it gets is maybe on a couple of solos. In track 3, there's that in Infusorium, there's a sort of solo that feels kind of like it's got like an 80s heavy metal feel to it, but it's like over some like darker chords, which is kind of nice contrast. But on the whole, man, like it's pretty straight guitar wise, but I think it works better in its favor.
Well, when you talk about solos as well, the other one in Coin is actually Gary Holt from Slayer Exodus does a guest on it. Yeah.
I didn't know that because
that's quite a lengthy solo for that song as well. But yeah, that's not them. That's Gary Holt popping in.
Yeah, because I said that it's sort of in that song. Actually, there's a really shit riff, but it sort of like chugs like between the 1 and 0, but like they've got this really cool blast going over the top with this like cool solo. So I guess the solo is him.
With that riff, because it stops and plays it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they're quite smart with what they do with it. They only do it for a split second, really, before the blast come back. And when the blast come back in, it makes the riff sound cool. But on its own, they could have done something. They could have easily done something shitter with the drums to then, make that riff not work at all. But the blasts over it make it work.
Yeah, it transforms it almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think what you were saying about the interludes, they were placed, I think, perfectly on this record, because it is very relentless, and the interludes allowed time to sort of just let your ears relax a little bit. But they all painted a sort of horror movie almost aesthetic, which I quite liked. They had that kind of like haunting piano or like some discordant violin, which sort of all served a purpose to sort of add to this like unnerving overall darkness to this record, which was pretty relentless all throughout.
Yeah, man. I was going to ask you about the drumming again, and I think it's part of this guy's sound, because you hear it on Pig Destroyer albums as well, but it's very processed, isn't it? It's very triggered.
Yeah.
And
that didn't annoy me.
I think it's also, you got this, like, you're listening to it thinking it must be fucking hard to do that without triggering it, to kind of keep up the intensity of it, because it is so full on pretty much the whole time. And I remember when listening to Pig Destroyer years ago, I did wonder, especially because I knew Agoraphobic Nosebleed was it was fake drums. I wondered if Pig Destroyer was the same. And then I actually saw him live, and that guy was playing drums. It's like, oh shit, it's a real drummer. He can really do it.
Did the production annoy you? Because it is for black metal. It's very, I don't want to say clean, but it was very produced.
Yeah.
And like you said, triggered. And I know you're not necessarily a fan of that style. I
think because of what it's trying to do, I can hear the necessity for it. I mean, for me, it would be incredible to hear that album with a drummer doing what he's doing with a more like natural sounding kit. That would be great. But I get why. Some of the, and this wasn't throughout, but sometimes some of the use of the vocal layering to me felt a little bit overproduced. In places I thought it really worked, but in others they were bringing it in quite a lot. Like, you'd do a line that it'd layer, like, there'd be then a multiple vocal layered line. And sometimes that felt a bit excessive and kind of made it then feel like a bit more of an over. That's why the overproduction did sort of stand out in a negative way for me. But in general, no. This album grew on me actually as well. I found with each listen, I enjoyed it a little bit more.
I'm in the same boat. When I first listened to it all the way through, it was kind of like, first of all, great length, 37 minutes. It didn't really outstay its welcome. Even though it's kind of 13 songs, it's quite long in that sense. But like, the longest song is like 4 minutes, so it never outstays its welcome. But it was like, listen to it once, I was like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. It's like just relentless, like modern black metal, like extreme metal. And then with every other listen, you start picking out like new things, and it just it really amped up the kind of overall rating for me.
Yeah, man. I mean, go on.
I'm going to say, did you have a standout song?
Did I? I think I did. Wait a minute. Hang on. I liked probably the song "Gold," the title track. That had to the riff was more kind of that melodic, icy black metal. It reminded me a little bit more of Immortal. Had that kind of vibe to it, and there was a few of those riff peppered throughout. But I enjoyed it on that song the most. When they did that. They would do like a chord change, which is almost quite melodic, but in that black metal way that's nice.
Yeah.
That remains that kind of icy evilness to it, but it's got like a melodic chord in there. So that was probably my highlight.
The end of that song had like quite a slow, chuggy moment, and it kind of reminded me of Pantera. It had sort of shades of Pantera because it did that sort of fade out as well. And I was thinking, I wonder if that's sort of like a little nod potentially. I felt like they didn't. I don't think there was any songs that stayed to one of the styles that they were doing throughout. Do you know what I mean? As in they sort of like meandered within each song.
Yeah, there wasn't a song that I listened to and thought, right, this one's the real kind of black metal number that they've done here, where it feels like that all throughout. There'd always be a change that would either make it go either like kind of fast grind, or there'd be like a more death metal moment in there. There was always quite an equal mix of the styles throughout all the songs on the album, apart from the interlude tracks.
That's true. However, on like a broader picture, you could say that each song sort of had there was almost a formula in a way. It was kind of like maybe a checklist. It was like, right, fast grindy moment, maybe like tremolo atmospheric moment, maybe a slow chuggier riff moment, and within that kind of context. But I mean, that's fair enough. It's a short album. They're short songs.
Well, and I mean, it was predictable, but it also added the cohesion to it as well. And also, I think the formula they got was good. Like there was
don't get me wrong. I don't think there was any
need to stray from that, because I think they've sort of, and obviously they've done a bunch of EPs before, so I feel like they've obviously established their sound. And And I listened to one other song, an older song, because they had I saw some thing, and they had Jason Momoa, like fucking Aquaman, doing vocals on an EP before, and I thought I've got to hear that. Did you listen to it? I linked it to you.
No, I didn't listen to it. How was it? Not?
It's pretty good. Yeah. His vocals were. I couldn't quite work out what he was doing on it, but it was. He's got some lungs on him as well. Yeah.
So all that swimming. I think just to talk about standouts, track 9, Hell, was probably mine.
That was my other one. That was it?
That was really cool. They had this sort of like triplet riff that sort of with like picked intervals, that sort of motif that ran throughout, and at the end they sort of had that and slowed the drum beat down with like high atmospheric lead. I just kind of wish that went on for longer. I think that was maybe one of the best moments of the record for me.
Yeah, I feel like the kind of grind influence on this album keeps the song short. It sort of seems like it's quite intentional. I just want to touch on quickly the song after Hell, Invoke. What did you think of that and the lyrics?
So I wanted to touch on this. For me, this is probably the most like modern black metal song on the record, in terms of like, it sounds like kind of Behemoth, like modern Behemoth, modern Dimmu Borgir a little bit, sans synths, but like you had that kind of all hail Satan moment, like very cheesy.
Yeah,
I didn't necessarily mind it, because it didn't. If the whole album had that, I would have been annoyed.
Yeah,
but the fact that it was kind of just a moment in that song, I didn't mind it too much.
It stood out lyrically and vocally, didn't it? Because I felt before then you didn't really notice what was going on lyrically.
Yeah,
then
true.
At that point you're like, oh, it's that real kind of. It was cheesy, but I think also where it's placed in the album, because it's quite late on, it doesn't really colour your view of the album.
No,
even if you didn't enjoy that bit,
you've heard enough by that point to kind of be like, this isn't just a kind of cheesy modern take on black metal. And then I think because it was so short, I sort of allowed it a little bit. But there's no getting away from the fact it was quite cheesy.
John, what are you going to score this, man? I feel I had a number in my head, but now I feel like I could give it a bit higher.
So I've got a score written down, which is 4.1 out of 5. For me, it was kind of start to finish. Nothing was skippable. It was all fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, played it all the way through. There maybe wasn't enough slight variation to kind of push it to a 5, but for what it is, I think it's like a very impeccable, solid, like modern extreme metal album.
Yeah. Has it flown under the radar a little? I mean, it's only just come out, hasn't it? What are you on about?
It's only just come out, yeah. So unsure. That's what we do here, Mike. We review the latest.
I know. When we did an old pod, we were doing all our old shit, weren't we? I forget about that.
That's it. Yeah.
I was going to give it a 3.7, but that feels harsh. So I think I'm going to go for a 3.9.
Yeah.
But under the understanding that I think if I go back to this, I think I will enjoy it more.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, they're both kind of, so what's that? That's averaging like a 4, isn't it? 4 out of 5.
Yeah. Hey, would you say this is Phil Anselmo's best project?
Ooh. That's a good question, man. I really enjoyed Down.
Yeah.
That's a tough question, man, because this is probably the closest project to my tastes.
All right, okay, here we go.
I'd maybe need more of it to put that in.
What would you think you would go back to more often, this or Down? Regularly?
Probably this.
Yeah.
But that's probably because I did a lot of Down.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? I've sort of done that in my history. What about? Do you think this is his best?
I mean, the thing for me, it doesn't sound like a Phil Anselmo project, which is, you think of the other stuff he did with obviously Pantera, Down, and like Superjoint Ritual. You kind of all knew he was involved. Whereas I had but if I didn't know before listening to this, I would have no idea it was him.
Yeah, you wouldn't equate the two, would you? You just think
No.
like Phil Anselmo plus black metal is kind of two. It's a mix that you just wouldn't necessarily put together.
Well, he's always been a fan of that sort of stuff.
True. I just don't associate him performing that kind of stuff.
No, and like, you know, credit to him for his vocal performance on it.
Yeah, really cool. All right. Well, listen, I think we've finished everything we need to with this. So thanks for watching. We're going to put out new videos every Friday reviewing the latest metal music. And if you like what you heard, give us a little smash of that subscribe and like button. Let us know what you thought about this in the comments. I'd be keen to know if it kind of went down well overall, because our opinion maybe doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.